but I had something to aspire to. And of course, why was I such a terrible student? Because Brooklyn Talmudical Academy on President Street, Franklin, and Bedford Avenue was foolish enough to locate itself 4 blocks from Ebbets Field. So I spent 4 years cutting classes, going and watching Brooklyn Dodger games. The only thing I have that reminds me of that is I actually have on my finger the 1955 Brooklyn Dodger World Series Championship ring owned by Don Zimmer. And I had a highlight going to Brooklyn Talmudical Academy. I played basketball in Madison Square Garden. I was a substitute, but they put me in at the end when Manhattan Talmudical was beating Brooklyn Talmudical. And guess who I guarded? I guarded a short little guy, very well dressed, whose name was Ralphie Lipschitz. He became Ralph Lauren. Not a great ball player, but boy did he dress well. So for me, it really is homecoming. Also, I love museums. Why do I love museums so much? When I got suspended from Brooklyn Talmudical Academy for being a bandit, I spent my time in the Brooklyn Museum. I learned all about Egyptian culture, but it didn't have anything about Jewish culture. I wish this museum had been open. I would have learned about Egyptian culture and Jewish culture and the Jews in Egypt, but museums have been great. And for me, a museum, to be a real museum, has to be an interactive living museum. It's not something you passively go and look at. You can do that in other places, but if you're a young person, you want the museum to talk to you. You want to be able to talk back to the museum. I took a tour of the museum today. It's fantastic. Just fantastic. I wish I had young kids. My grandkids are both in medical school, so maybe they wouldn't be so interested. But maybe they'll have kids that I could bring to the museum someday. So thank you so much for bringing me home, for bringing me back to Brooklyn. This is a very important day in Jewish history. It's a day when we saw a very contested election in Israel. And we saw Israel as a democracy. I'll never forget a story where I was, this is a name-dropping story. I was having dinner with Bill and Hillary Clinton on Martha's Vineyard, and Bibi had just gotten elected for the first time, and somebody was being very, very critical of Bibi. And I started to respond, and Bill Clinton said, no, let me take this, let me take this. He said, there's only one problem with Israel. He said, you see, the Saudis, if I wanted to get something, I just pick up the phone and they do it. The Jordanians, I'll cut off funds if they don't do it. They do it. The Egyptians, they do it. If I call Bibi and I tell him to do something, I got to check with my inner cabinet, with my outer cabinet. I got to do polls. He said the problem with Israel, and this is his exact words, it's a democracy, damn it. And that means you can't tell them what to do. The people govern. I'll never forget when Bibi first got elected. I was in Israel doing a book on the Genesis of Justice, about the book of Genesis, and Bibi called me. I've known Bibi since he's 22 years old, when he was a student at MIT. And so he called me and said, Alan, bring your wife, bring your daughter. I just became prime minister. I have a nice office. We'll schmooze and take pictures. We did. We schmoozed. We took pictures. Then he takes me into the little inner sanctum and says, Alan, I have something I really have to ask you. In quiet. Nobody can overhear. There's no wiretaps, nothing. I thought he was going to ask me about Iran, about the Palestinians. He puts his arm around me. Remember this, 1996. He says, Alan, did OJ do it? I said, Mr. Prime Minister, I have a question I've always wanted to ask you. Does Israel have nuclear weapons? He said, Alan, you know I can't tell you that. I said, you know I can't tell you that. And we both got a good laugh and went on to talk about more serious matters. I also want to tell a story about Chabad. I love Chabad. I brought Chabad to Harvard about 20 years ago. A rabbi came to my office with a long beard, you know, a chassid obviously, and said, I want to start a Chabad at Harvard. I said, wow, that's an interesting idea. He says, nobody else thinks it's an interesting idea. We're so, you know, religious, we look different. Harvard? I said, it can work. It can work. I said, we have professors that appeal to the brain. We don't have at Harvard an appeal to the neshama, to the soul, to the heart. You can bring that to Harvard. And we started Chabad at Harvard. And now there's Chabad at every major university in the United States, in England, France, you name it. And Chabad on campus has revolutionized Israel advocacy on campus. You know, Hillel is split. There's open Hillel, there's closed Hillel, there's people in Hillel on both sides of the issue. Chabad unequivocally supportive of Israel and Israel's willingness to defend itself. So, a few years ago, I had a friend, much like you, who had converted to Judaism, and he looked like you. Blonde, blue-eyed, not your typical Jewish look. So I bring him here to show him what Chabad was like on Rosh Hashanah. And we walk in, and of course, a young 16-year-old boy holding a shofar comes over to me and says, "Are you Jewish?" He doesn't come to my friend Tom. And so I said, "Yeah, both of us are Jewish." But I wasn't wearing a kippah. I was still a block away. And so the young man said, holding a shofar, "Have you ever heard of a shofar?" And I said, "Yeah. Actually, let me hold that for a second." He says, "Well, I want to blow it for you and you'll get a mitzvah." I said, "Yeah, I've heard of this." And I picked up the shofar and I blew a perfect Tekiah Shvarim Teruah. And the kid looks at me and said, "Where'd you learn to do that?" And I said, "Oh, it's just innate. It's inborn." The idea of Chabad is always teaching, always educating, and the idea that there's now a museum matters too. All lives matter. The Talmud says, "He who takes a single human life, it is as if they have destroyed the entire world. And he who saves a single human life, it is as if they saved the whole world." And I want to turn around and just thank our officers, people who save human lives every single day. Risk of their own lives. I often fight you in the courtroom, but I admire you so much. I have to tell you, sometimes when I fight you in the courtroom, I actually hope you're going to win, but I have to do my job because I know that you go after people who endanger the community and you make us all safer. And every time I see a policeman on the street, every time I stop and I say thank you. And we should all always say thank you to every member of the police force. I have another policy. I represent police officers and members of the military free of charge. I've been doing that for 50 years. You've given us so much. If you ever need me, I'm there for you. And I hope that we're all there for members of the police. They do so much good for America. When we were kids in Brooklyn, we learned a very stupid statement on the streets of Brooklyn. "Sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never harm you." Nonsense. Words, names can kill you. And Ari was killed because of words. He was killed because people spread words, spread anti-Semitism, spread stories about what it means to be a Jew, a religious Jew. Somebody riding in a car, in a van. The distance from Congress, where people like Ilan Omer preach hate, to the Brooklyn Bridge is very, very small. And we have to stop hate where it begins. Nobody who expresses the kind of hate that we're hearing for the first time in many years, not for the first time ever. When I was a child and they were trying to bring people from the Shoah and rescue them to bring them to the United States, there was a notorious senator, Senator Bilbo, from the South, who opposed bringing Jews in the kinder transport. He said, "Yeah, today they're cute little Jews, tomorrow they'll be ugly Jews." Things like that were said on the floor of Congress. But in my adult life, they were never said since the Shoah, since the end of the Holocaust. And for the first time, we are hearing those words from people who ought to know better. And we are hearing tolerance of those words from people in leadership positions. We are hearing it in England, where it's become mainstream within the Labour Party to say things that are critical of Jews, to say things that are critical of the nation state of the Jewish people. Yes, there is a new form of anti-Semitism, but it's old wine with new labels. It's now called anti-Zionism. Oh, we don't hate the Jews. Yeah, they're a little pushy, and their lobby is too powerful, and they talk too much, and they have too much money, and they control the media. No, but we don't hate Jews. We just hate Zionism. Martin Luther King, a long time ago, said when you attack Zionism, you're attacking Jews. It's anti-Semitism, because Zionism is the national liberation movement of the Jewish people. The Jewish liberation movement has to have the same status with the left and the right as other liberation movements, but it doesn't. And Zionism today, on college campuses all over the world, has become a pariah. BDS, boycott. Boycott only Israel. Where does BDS begin? It begins with the Nazi boycott of Jewish stores in the 1930s. It continues through the Arab boycott of Jewish businesses, even movies, in the 1960s. What's new? What's new about it? The directors of BDS aren't interested in the occupation of the West Bank. They think Tel Aviv is occupied. They think the occupation occupies all of Palestine from the river to the sea. That's not me talking. This is Barghouti, the head of BDS. When I was invited by Oxford University to debate BDS, they invited Barghouti, and he said, no, I can't debate Dershowitz. He's subject to BDS because he's an American Zionist. And so he won't even debate me. He won't interact with me. He won't go to listen to Jewish artists. Does that sound familiar? Do you know, I have a friend, some of you know him, he's one of the greatest pianists in the world today. His name is Evgeny Kissin, and he's going to be in Carnegie Hall next week. He did something brave and courageous a couple of years ago. Because he heard about the attempt to boycott Israeli artists, he went to Israel and became an Israeli citizen. So now he stands up to audiences, and he says, you're boycotting Israelis? You can't come and listen to me. He's the greatest pianist in the world today, and he's standing strong in Israel. He's not an Israeli. He lives in England. He's from Russia. He spends time in America. But he's standing strong. He's saying, if you boycott Israelis, you're boycotting me. We all have to do that. Everybody has to do that. We started a campaign a few years ago where they were trying to boycott Israeli professors. And we started small. I got 6 or 7 American professors, Nobel Prize winners, headed by a Nobel Prize in Physics winner in Texas. And I said to him, I called him on the phone and said, you have an honorary degree from Bar Ilan, don't you? I said, yeah, I have an honorary degree from Tel Aviv University. So why don't we start a campaign saying we are professors in America, but we hold degrees from Israeli universities. And if you boycott Israeli academics, you're boycotting us as well, and we will not interact with you. We originally thought we'd get 50 or 60 signatures. 11,000 American academics signed our petition and said, if you boycott Israeli academics, you're boycotting us. The end result is the boycotters were boycotted. If you can't deal with 11,000 American professors, many of whom have won important prizes, you're the ones who are being boycotted. And I've always said to my Israeli friends, the best way to fight against BDS is create products so invaluable that no one can do without them. Whenever I speak about BDS, I ask people to take out their cell phones. You're a supporter of BDS, throw away your cell phone. You're a supporter of BDS, stop taking medicine. Die if you have to, but you can't take the medicine that will save your life because it was developed in Israel. If you grow agriculture, stop using the drip method of agriculture. It was invented in Israel. Hopefully in 2 days, we hope, we can pray, the first satellite from an Israeli enterprise will land on the moon. Israel will become the 4th country in the history of the world to land a satellite on the moon. What a remarkable achievement. Has any country in the history of the world ever contributed more to humankind in the short period that Israel has existed, 70 years? No. Israel has contributed so much to medical technology, to so many other aspects of daily life. When I debated BDS at Oxford, I threw out a challenge to a very hostile audience. BDS is very strong at Oxford. I said, I want anybody in the audience to shout out the name of any country in the world, faced with threats comparable to those faced by Israel, that has a better record of human rights, a higher level of compliance with the rule of law, and more concern for the life of enemy civilians. Not a single person in the whole audience was able to name a single country with a better record. Yet, Israel is condemned more than all the other countries in the world combined at the United Nations. Israel is condemned on university campuses more than all countries in the world combined. You cannot get a demonstration on an American university campus today against the massacres that are going on in Syria. You can't get a demonstration against what's happening to the Kurdish people. But you mentioned Israel, Palestine, you'll get thousands of people and faculty members going in protesting. To single out the nation state of the Jewish people, all out of proportion to its faults, and no country is perfect. Our country isn't perfect, Israel isn't perfect. That's what democracy is about. You criticize your own country, you criticize other countries. But to condemn Israel, to single it out all out of proportion, means only one thing. Israel is the Jew among nations. And it is being subject to the historic discrimination that Jews as individuals and Jews as groups have experienced over the years. And if you're going to fight anti-Semitism, you have to also fight anti-Zionism. You know, I'm often asked, am I a pessimist or an optimist in Israel? A pessimist is one who says, oh, Gaval, things are so bad they can't get worse. An optimist says, yes, they can. I am both a pessimist and an optimist. This is the best of times. It's the best of times for Israel. Israel's never been stronger militarily, diplomatically, economically. The Jewish community in America has never been stronger. You know, I have to tell you, 40, 50 years ago, we could not get people who have come to honor the memory of Ari tonight, people from the police departments, DAs, the mayor. This is a reflection of what we have contributed to America. But the Jewish community and Israel have never been in a more precarious position for many, many years. Israel is threatened by Iran, by Hezbollah, by Hamas. The Jewish community is experiencing an increase in anti-Semitism, not only in the United States and around the world. And the answer to it is multifold. Number one, fight back. Always fight back. Never remain silent in the face of bigotry. Never tolerate any anti-Semitism. There must be zero tolerance. Even when my friends inadvertently do it, I call them out. Let me give you an example. I'm a close friend of Bill Clinton's. I've known him for many, many, many years. I took him to shul with me on Rosh Hashanah when he first became president. We are close friends. But when he went to Aretha Franklin's funeral and found himself 3 seats away from Louis Farrakhan and stayed there and didn't walk out, I condemned him in the media for that. I said, you do not sit next to Louis Farrakhan. You walk out. If that had been David Duke, you would never have stayed for a minute. Bigotry knows no color. Bigotry knows no ethnicity. If you're a bigot, you are not supposed to be honored by anybody for any reason. It's hard to walk out of a memorial service. It takes courage to do that. But Bill Clinton didn't express that courage. His daughter did. Interestingly enough, Chelsea, shortly thereafter, wrote a piece condemning Farrakhan, never mentioning her father, but saying nobody should do anything but expect zero tolerance for against anti-Semitism. So Jews have to use the influence we have well earned in this country. We have to use our influence because we need power to stop anti-Semitism. Israel needs power to stop all the countries in the world that have been sworn to its destruction. There's an interesting line in the Psalms. It says, Hashem oz li'amo yiteni. God will give the Jewish people oz, strength. Hashem yivarech et amo b'shalom. Only then will the Jewish people have peace. Historically, for the Jewish people to have peace, they need strength. As Bibi Netanyahu said recently, if the Arabs lay down their arms, there would be peace. If Israel laid down its arms, there would be genocide. We have to understand this is not symmetrical. When people say, oh, why can't Iran have a nuclear bomb? Israel, maybe, has a nuclear bomb. There's an enormous difference. Israel would never use a nuclear weapon, except as an ultimate act of deterrence and self-defense. The leader of Iran said a few years ago, if we get a nuclear weapon, we'll bomb Tel Aviv, we'll kill 3 million Jews. Israel is a one-bomb state. They'll respond, maybe they'll kill 20 million Muslims, but the trade-off is worth it, because it will destroy Israel and Islam will not be negatively affected. People who have that state of mind cannot be allowed to have weapons of destruction that are capable of carrying out the threat. So, my message to you is in the spirit of Ari, in the spirit of his mother. Be strong. Fight back. State your principles. Remain consistent. Don't worry about people accusing you of dual loyalty. We love America. We love America. My mother used to, and my grandmother used to take me to the Statue of Liberty on July 4th and make me sing not only the first stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner. How many of you know there's a second stanza? My grandmother from Poland knew the second stanza because she loved America with such a passion. That didn't reduce her love for her Jewish tradition any more than being a Catholic and loving the Vatican and loving the Pope and loving the Catechism. As John Kennedy taught us now so many years ago, that doesn't make you any less of an American. So be proud of your Jewishness. Be proud of your Americanism. Fight back. Be strong. And may you go from strength to strength. Yeah.